Well, I think you have your answer why I work here. I'm somebody who does need space and calm around them when they work. Partly, of course, because I'm a painter and I need isolation. But this is the reason I have always felt more comfortable working in the country. In the early 70s, I received an Arts Council trainee bursary and was sent to the Young Vic in London, which was then run by Frank Dunlop. He just assumed I had designed things, so I walked through the door and was immediately their designer, which I remained for 2 years. So I cut my teeth really on a very hefty schedule of shows and meeting directors and after 2 years, I was trying to do my painting in the night and that during the day. And I got offered a scholarship through Peter Brook, the director, which was a Shakespeare Prize scholarship. And I left the Young Vic, went to Germany, went to watch rehearsals with a Cologne ballet company. And they called Tanzschul, and they offered me a show to design, which was my first dance work. And at the same time, I took my paintings I'd been doing into a gallery in Cologne, and they offered me an exhibition. So I kind of date that as the beginning of my working life. The big break for me, I think, was the fact that suddenly there was nothing on offer in the UK, and Jochen Ulrich, who ran Tanzschul, a company very similar to Ballet Ronde at that time, took the chance, looked at a couple of paintings and offered me a show. And I did the show with him. As I said, I did an exhibition with a gallery Ariadne in Cologne, and discovered that they had a gallery in Vienna. And the head of the gallery asked if I'd go to Vienna and make prints. And the first show with Jochen followed on to a second and a third. And then the American choreographer Glen Tetley saw that and asked me to do a work with him, which we subsequently did in Netherlands Dance Theatre in Den Haag. And that's when I met Jiri Kylian, who was the then director of Netherlands Dance Theatre. And Kylian and I then went on to do 9-10 ballets together over the next 10-12 years. And the Vienna contact led to several exhibitions and suites of etchings and prints in Vienna. So when you say, how do you get work? You get work, I think, only by people seeing the work you've done. It's the biggest reason that everything you do has to be the best you can do, because certainly in my case, all my work has come from people seeing the previous job or the one before that. Oh, how I work. Well, of course, my work, as you now know, is divided between my work as a painter and my work as a theatre designer. So, of course, there was a period early in my life where I tried to keep the two separate. I would never exhibit any of my theatre costume designs. They were purely, as I said, work drawings. And I would only exhibit what I considered to be paintings. But despite my best efforts, the two worlds, of course, have started to travel closer and closer together as the years have gone on. They now travel side by side. And that, of course, means that a lot of my imagery on stage is either architectural or big painted images, and normally a combination of both things. So my work as a painter also extends into being very, very involved in the actual painting of the full-size stage drops, which can be 18 metres by 20 metres in size. And I work on these with the painters at the workshops, and a lot of the paint finishes on the sets. The other side of it is, of course, that because of that, it's almost impossible for me to use model builders, which I know most designers do, because I kind of think the design through by building the model, and the end product is always totally dependent on its painted finish. So I'm kind of trapped now into a way of work which I've evolved into and I like, but it means that I don't really work with any assistants. I always have an assistant on each show, and I have a costume assistant and supervisor, which I have to have. And I now, as the years have gone on, tend to work with the same people for that. But I don't employ any model builders. And it does mean that the time scale of my work is maybe a bit longer than many other designers. And also because I'm hands-on with the production period, which can be 2, 3, 4 months, I have no possibility to do other shows while that's happening. So I suppose it limits the amount of work I do. I think something that will be apparent by looking at my work is not just how the paintings influence the theatre, but how finished theatre productions then provide the subject for paintings, which is actually a very exciting thing that I never expected would happen. That I can see a finished opera, or mainly it tends to be opera, or ballet. And in that moment of looking at the stage, I can think, oh, if you cropped that and did this and that with it, this could be a fantastic image for a painting. And it wouldn't matter that you had seen the production. It would be an image in its own right. The other side of that is also one of the subjects which I've always been intrigued by, and of course completely understand why Sickert and Degas were intrigued by, is the life of backstage and from the wings in theatres, which is a life that most of the public never get to see. And I'm sure it's why there are backstage tours of theatres, because people are desperate to be able to view this kind of mystical box, which they only ever see from one side, from the other side. So that is a major source of inspiration in the paintings. And I think the other paintings that technically have nothing to do with theatre that I do are still lifes. And I realise, and quite recently I started to realise, of course, that if you're engineering a still life, it is exactly the same discipline as I would employ when I'm engineering how things sit within the parameters of a stage. You're making your viewer look very specifically in a certain way at something and dictating to them how they should look at it. So, I think I'm cooked, as a friend of mine in America says to me a lot. You're cooked. This is who you are, this is what you do, and stop trying to pension yourself off just because you're in your late 60s. And I suppose he's right.